Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope, and I am shooting this from Barcelona because I'm currently on vacation, but I'm still delivering videos to you guys. I'm actually here with Kevin, my co-host on the FPL Scope podcast, so I'll see if I can be able to make a podcast with him, but yeah, at least I'll give you these videos with the FPL eye test today, and tomorrow you'll see the weekly wildcard drafts, as always, on this channel. So let's start with FPL eye tests. There's a lot of games to go through, a lot of games that I've watched, some live, some in retrospect, some through highlights, but either way, here we are. Let's start with Liverpool against Everton, and not the most surprising result, 2-0 for Liverpool, but it did take a while before Liverpool managed to score. Salah once again proved to be essential in the game. He is currently the most essential player in FPL, in my opinion, and he proved that once again, being the best. Not the best captain's option, but among the popular captain's options, he was the best one with 2 goals. One of them coming extremely late in the 2-0 win against Everton, and the other one being a penalty as well. So it might not be sustainable for Salah getting these penalties all the time, but at the same time, Liverpool are such a good team, and Salah is going to be on the pitch every single minute for Liverpool, and they are going to create a lot of chances, and he's going to take penalties. So he is the best asset in the game currently, and definitely worth the price, even though he costs 12.8 now, which is quite a lot at this point. But yeah, Everton once again against one of the bigger teams couldn't really create much. They once again tried to defend their way to a win. We've seen this season that Everton have actually been a pretty decent offensive side, but that's against the lesser teams. When they've had tough opposition this season, they faced Aston Villa away, Arsenal at home, and now Liverpool away. I think they are merely like getting 1 XG in total in those 3 games, which, I mean, it makes sense to be not as good against the better teams, but it's quite interesting to see Everton, who have been like one of the better teams in terms of XG against the lesser teams, how they kind of crumble in terms of creating chances against the bigger teams. So I think the clean sheet chances for teams playing against Everton, especially like the bigger teams, should be pretty high, so you shouldn't be too scared about using defenders from Liverpool against Everton. And some people took advantage of that with Tsimikas, who is now one of the better options in FPL because he's only 4.5, and he's going to play as a left back for Liverpool in most matches going forward with Robertson out injured, so he's another good pick for you to choose. But he was also subbed off after 61 minutes, which was kind of lucky for him and his owners. He got the clean sheet points barely. Some other players, which we'll get to at the end of this video, were not so lucky, but either way, Tsimikas is still a great option. He's going to play mostly 60 plus minutes, I think. It's just also a bit different because Everton played with 10 men most of the game, so that should also be noted in terms of the XG numbers. They couldn't really create that much, and for the most part of this game, they were trying to defend a point because they had 0-0 for a while. So you should look at the expected goals numbers with some context, with the fact that Everton were 1 man down and the fact that they had the point for so long, but at the same time, they haven't proven in the other big games that they can create many chances against tough opposition. So yeah, Ashley Young with 2 stupid yellow cards. We would say that it would be like a rookie mistake if someone younger did it, but Ashley Young is like one of the most experienced players in Premier League, so kind of interesting to see him make those mistakes. But yeah, so ended up being 2-0 for Liverpool. Huge haul for Salah, and no points for Everton's players or Everton in general. So yeah, that's pretty much that game. Next up, we have Nottingham Forest against Luton, and this was kind of a different game. We had Nottingham Forest, who were kind of the best team in this match, but it was kind of even. Like, these teams are kind of erratic, I guess. Like, they can create chances, both of them, but they can also concede easily as well. So pretty back and forth game, but Nottingham Forest sort of had the upper hand most of the game. Chris Wood in particular, you can see his non-penalty expected goal involvement there, 1.78, which is crazy, super high, but it's not unwarranted either because he had so many chances. Like, he could have scored so many more than the 2 goals that he did score, but he did end up with 2 goals. Could have had a third one as well to win the game with 3-2, but it was deemed offside, and it was offside, to be fair as well. Didn't even need VAR for that one. But yeah, Wood looked really good for Forest, the Nottingham Forest striker. I know if Taiwo Awoniyi, if he was still fit to play, he'd be a pretty popular FPL pick at this point, or at least like a popular differential pick. And it's a shame that we couldn't go for him, and people wouldn't really go for Chris Wood. But Wood is probably potentially on penalties. It might be him, it might be Gibbs White for Nottingham Forest now that he's the starting striker. And playing against Luton, we've seen people score a lot of points against them in the past as well, and it looked like Nottingham Forest were going to go get a pretty easy win with 2-0 here. But then towards the end of the match, Luton showed that they have some fight in them, as they've shown in a couple other games where they've scored a couple late goals to deny people clean sheets, especially those with Turner in goal. Kind of happy to see Turner concede myself, but at the same time, Luton are that scrappy type of team that score scrappy kind of goals. The first goal was really lucky, like the ball just bounced. It was a really poor cross from a free kick, and the ball just bounced from the head of a Nottingham Forest player back to one of the Luton players. Can't remember exactly. I think it was Ogbene who scored. Chidozie Ogbene who scored. But yeah, Luton scored 2 kind of scrappy goals and managed to get 2-2. So yeah, both these teams kind of unreliable, both in terms of targeting them and in terms of like going for players for them. I wouldn't recommend getting players from either team probably, but Gibbs White potentially when he has fixtures like this, if Taiwan Winnie comes back fit, or if Chris Wood is the starting striker, I guess are some decent options. But in terms of targeting these teams, I think both these teams also play kind of differently when they face tough opposition and when they face easy opposition. We've seen that with Nottingham Forest especially, they really open up when they play teams like Luton, try to play more offensively, and we've seen them play against bigger teams where they kind of shore up defensively and try to keep the clean sheets. So that's going to be an interesting thing for next game week in particular, because Liverpool play at home against Nottingham Forest. Salah seems to be the best captaincy option currently, or the most popular captaincy option currently maybe, but I don't think Nottingham Forest will be as easy to score on as they were against Luton this time. I think also it was kind of due to individual mistakes as well, but Luton did create quite a few chances to be fair to them, but Nottingham Forest probably should have won this game in general. But either way, I think it's interesting to see Forest and Salah next game week. We have some other captaincy options to discuss as well, but he's definitely one of the best options, Salah. Next up, we have Bournemouth against Wolverhampton, and once again, Wolverhampton managed to get 3 points. Wolverhampton are looking really good, and this is pretty much the biggest storyline in this game, is the fact that Gary O'Neill was the manager for Bournemouth last season. He managed to keep them up, did a really good job. A lot of people had him as potentially a manager of the year candidate, and then all of a sudden in the summer he was sacked to bring in Andone Iraola, who's supposed to be a more progressive manager who can actually like make the team better, but that has not been the case. They have been really terrible this season, Bournemouth, and once again losing against their former coach Gary O'Neill, who has now taken over Wolverhampton and gotten a lot of good results for them as well. And they're looking much better than they were last season under Lopetegui, so huge revenge game for Gary O'Neill. And at the same time, it might be the end of the road for Andone Iraola, the new manager for Bournemouth. Would be kind of sweet, I guess, for Gary O'Neill to make sure that his successor is getting sacked after they lost against Gary O'Neill's new team. But it seems like our Iraola is about to be sacked. There are no confirmed news as of this recording, which is on is it Tuesday today? But yeah, it seems like he might be gone, and that might also be a difference maker for Bournemouth going forward in terms of FPL as well, because currently they are probably the best team to target in FPL, because they do play sort of like a very ambitious style. That's why they conceded the goals that they conceded, especially the second goal, lost the ball in their own half, as they have done several times this season. It seems like they're struggling to cope with Iraola's system. But yeah, if they change manager, if Iraola goes out, I assume they would go back to sort of like a more defensive style manager, which is kind of strange because they brought in a lot of like exciting new players this summer. So I think they should still try to get like a manager who tries to produce something going forward. I think that was like one of the main criticisms towards Gary O'Neill, was the fact that he didn't play that interesting football. But personally, I think Wolverhampton play more interesting football this season as well, not only for the results but also in terms of how they look on the pitch. But that's also a lot down to Pedro Neto, who looks absolutely fantastic this season. Once again, had an assist. Hwang Hee-chan as well has been great as well. He was able to get a red card for Lewis Cook for Bournemouth. He sort of got like a little head nod from Lewis Cook and fell down kind of theatrically, Hwang Hee-chan, but it worked. He got a red card on Bournemouth, and that helped Wolverhampton turn around a 1-0 defeat into a 2-1 win. So good times for Wolverhampton, bad times for Bournemouth, and it's going to be interesting to see what Bournemouth do with their new manager. If they get another, maybe potentially English defensive style manager, maybe they're not as easy to target as they are currently. But at the same time, I think our Iraola with time could be a good manager, but at the same time, Bournemouth don't have that much time because they are one of the weaker teams in the league, and they already have a lot less points than they would want. But at the same time, there are a lot of like bad teams this season. no offense, Luton, Sheffield United, Burnley amongst them, the newly promoted teams. So I still think Iraola should be given time, but it doesn't seem like he's going to be given that time that he needs to settle his squad and make them used to the way he's playing. But you can see with other teams like Postecoglou Spurs that it doesn't really need to take that much time for a team to acclimatize to a new coach. But at the same time, it's different circumstances with Spurs and Bournemouth. But either way, this is a completely different discussion to FPL. But yeah, that's pretty much that game as well. Let's move on to the next game, and that is Manchester City against Brighton. This is a game where we expected lots of goals, and we got 3 goals, to be fair, which is pretty good. But if you look at expected goals, it's not that good. Both these teams struggle to create, and I think both teams are kind of struggling now with a lot of injuries and a lot of matches in consecutively, a lot of matches. Man City in particular have been pretty weak offensively, and once again they were pretty weak offensively, didn't create that much, but they did manage to get 2 goals. Alvarez got the first one and Haaland got the second one. Haaland once again with very little in terms of non-penalty expected goal involvement, to the disappointment of many people that captained him. He did get a goal though. It was a really nice, well-taken goal as well, but Haaland, the last 4 matches, I think he's had like 2 big chances in total and not that much XG in total, so I don't know. Haaland, it might not even be essential anymore, because I know a lot of people that wildcard, or several people that wildcarded in Gameweek 8 went without Haaland, and they have actually gained a lot of rank the last 2 game weeks because Haaland has not been the main essential man that he needs to be for that price. When it costs 14.0, he needs to score like 2 or 3 goals every now and then to be worth it and be like the major captaincy choice. But yeah, I said Salah is essential, but I don't think Haaland is essential. I know from the start of the season it was like, can you survive with Haaland and Salah from the start of the season? Many people thought no, we should go with only Haaland and not Salah. But I think it's more of a question, can you survive with both Haaland and Salah going forward? I think yes, still. I think Haaland still is pretty close to getting several goals again. It's not that long ago when he had like 5 huge chances against West Ham in the same game, so I wouldn't sell Haaland personally, but I do think there's a better argument for it on a Game Week 10 wildcard if you are feeling a bit risky in terms of not going with Haaland. But yeah, Alvarez again got a goal. He's one of the reasons why you might want to go without Haaland, because I think Alvarez for half the price might be worth the money. The last 4 game weeks, I think Haaland has 44 points and Alvarez has 43. So it's not really that much between them. And I see a lot of wildcard teams without Alvarez, but with Haaland. I'm kind of thinking like, maybe you could save the 7 million and spread that around elsewhere, but that has its own problems that I'll get more into when it comes to the weekly wildcard draft video that I'm going to record after this actually. But either way, 2-1 for Man City. Brighton looked pretty good. Mitoma looked really good in particular, and I think he's a really good asset going forward as well, even though Brighton didn't really create much, but it was against Man City away, which is one of the toughest matches to create chances, so that makes sense. Mitoma still looked really good, had several times where he dribbled, the PhD in dribbling, Mitoma. He's had several instances where he dribbled past Man City players and looked really good. But at the same time, Brighton once again got another injury, or 2 injuries in fact, because Welbeck had to be subbed off injured and Solly March had to be stretchered off, which is looking like a season-ending injury potentially, which is really bad for March, who is a really good and underrated, at least historically, player for Brighton. But at the same time, it might open up a path for Simon Adingra, who plays on the right, who can play the same position that March usually plays. Adingra is also 5.0 in fantasy, so he could be a really nice differential option on top of Mitoma, I think. I still think Mitoma has better value because he is more proven, but I think Adingra could be close to matching Mitoma if he gets to play every single game. And with Brighton's really easy fixtures coming up, you could make a case for Adingra. But at the same time, the injury to Welbeck might also be significant. If he is out for a certain while, I think a guy like Evan Ferguson might be a viable pick as well. He's only 6.0 as a forward. So I think there are several really good Brighton assets. It's a shame that Estepinian is still out for now, at least. But if he's back by Game Week 12 as well, I think tripling up on Brighton could be a really viable option going forward, because they have a lot of good matches. So yeah, Mitoma and either Adingra or Ferguson, and then eventually Estepinian. I think that could be the way to go in FPL, because I think Brighton are still a really good team. It's just that they have a lot of injuries and they have a lot of matches, so they are struggling a bit at the moment. But I think they can also turn it around, because they have some players coming back as well. Enciso is potentially coming back soon. Ansu Fati is probably going to play more and more as well. He's another decent option, but he still hasn't played more than 45 minutes in the game, I think. He still managed to come on in this game and score a goal again. So Fati has proven to be a really good goal scorer and probably someone that should get more playing time for Brighton, but we'll see what happens in the future. But But yeah, Man City and Brighton, kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. Man City have like really good proven players, but they have tough matches, at least on paper. Some of the matches, the 2 matches that they have upcoming, Man United away and Bournemouth at home, I think are really good matches, and that's why I think Alvarez and Haaland is still a really viable double up in attack. But Brighton, on the other hand, they have easy matches, but they do have a really tired squad, and they have a lot of key players injured, so it's tough to gauge. But I think Brighton have so many talented players that they could easily turn it around, and we know De Zerbi is such a good manager, so they could easily turn everything around pretty quickly. Speaking of turning things around, Brentford finally looked back to their best against Burnley, and I think that's pretty much the case that it is against Burnley, and that's why you look back to your best, because Burnley are really there for the taking currently, and Brentford showed that. And Mbeumo Wissa back up top with the non-penalty expected goal involvement really high, as they were in the first 3 or 4 games this season. Mbeumo got a goal and assist, really nice goal from Mbeumo, decent assist as well for Wissa, and yeah, they looked really good. So maybe you should keep Mbeumo still, because they do have some decent fixtures. At least they have some tougher fixtures here and there as well, but there is a case to be made to keep Mbeumo. I have him personally, and I'm probably going to sell him, but I think it wouldn't be that bad to go with him as well. On a wildcard, I probably wouldn't, but if you have him and you have other fires to put out, especially if you don't have a wildcard still, I think you could still stay in your squad. But yeah, he looks really good and looked really good in this game, but I think it's also down to just Burnley being a really poor team that we should really target currently. And I think that's pretty much the case for most people as well. They are looking at that Burnley fixture. We know Arsenal played them in game week 12. West Ham played them in game week 13. I think they have a pretty easy match coming up now, Burnley, where you can't really target them. There is a team with not the best FPL players, but I can't remember exactly which team they are playing. But I think that is definitely the team to target. So the likes of Saka and Bowen especially are players that I might captain against Burnley, because yeah, they've shown to be the team to target in general. We saw that with Son getting a lot of points against them, with Mbeumo now getting a lot of points against them. Sterling got a lot of points against them. So high-profile wingers or strikers are really nice to go for against Burnley. So we should keep that in mind. Then we have Newcastle against Crystal Palace, and this was also sort of expected, but I know a lot of people beforehand said that this would be 0-0 or 1-0 mostly, because that's what it's been historically with Newcastle and Crystal Palace. But I think this game sort of proves that Crystal Palace are kind of struggling more now without SA. Obviously, they're struggling offensively, but defensively as well. I think they don't have that much to go with going forward. So I think the opposing team will be more encouraged to go forward and press them and really put their defense under pressure. And that's what we saw this time. It's also another just reason to have faith in Newcastle as an offensive team. They are creating a lot of chances and are being really good. I think their strikers, I think Isak and Wilson have had 12 or 13 big chances combined the last 6 game weeks, but it's just that it's combined. They have half of them each. I think Isak has 7 and Wilson has 6 big chances the last 6 game weeks. So it's just a matter of who do you pick out of them. So as long as both are fit, it's going to be pretty much impossible to choose between them, because they are rotating every single match from who's starting up front. So I think Isak and Wilson, if one of them would be the main striker who played every single game, it would be easy to bring them in straight away, even with not the best fixtures. They still have decent fixtures in Newcastle, but not the best. But I think Anthony Gordon is the standout pick for Newcastle, because he plays every game. He is only 5.6, I think, in terms of value. So there are a lot of good value midfielders currently. Like we said with Brighton, with Mitoma and Adingra, we have Cole Palmer, who we'll get to pretty soon as well, and Gordon. So there are several really good cut price midfielders, and that's also a reason why I think you could go without, or not without, but you should probably go with Haaland and Salah still, because you have that money in the bank. But yeah, Gordon is a really good pick. Trippier is also obviously a really good pick. He keeps getting these weird assists. This time as well, he sort of just headed it to Murphy, who tried to lob it back post. I thought at first that the lob was going to the guy who came on the back post, who I think was Wilson. But the ball actually just went straight in. So that led to an assist for Trippier, a pretty lucky assist once again. I must say, as a non-Trippier owner, I have to put that disclaimer out there. I've been pretty hurt by Trippier's points lately, and he just keeps getting the points as well. He just keeps getting assists here and there, and he is fantastic for bonus regardless of assists. They keep getting clean sheets because Newcastle are a really good team, especially defensively, even without Sven Botman. who's still injured. Who's still injured until game week 13, I think. Game week 12 at the earliest. So yeah, Trippier just looks like a really good player, but once again, I'm struggling to see how I could fit him into my team. So yeah, I'm just personally, as someone who doesn't have Trippier, I'm just hoping and praying that he doesn't get these assists every single week that he has been doing lately. He has had like 5 or 6 assists, I think, from like not that much expected assists. So yeah, but it is Trippier. He is the main man for Newcastle. He's going to be involved quite a lot for Newcastle. He is the best defender in the game in terms of just pure points wise, in terms of points potential. It's just the price. He's now going up to 7.0, I think, in terms of price. So he's pretty high up there, but he's been worth the price definitely the last 5 game weeks. So yeah, anyone that jumped on him before the Brentford game, especially, hats off to you, because yeah, that has been the right play. He has been the best player in the game pretty much, I think, the last 5 game weeks. So yeah, hats off to anyone with Trippier. I wish I was one of them, but yeah, like I said, Crystal Palace, they still don't have Eze for quite some time, and I think that's going to hurt them a lot, especially, of course, offensively, but also defensively, it looks like now. So Crystal Palace could be a sneaky team to target, and that's something you should keep in mind with in regards to the Spurs players, which we'll talk about later on, or at the end of this video as well. Yeah, they still have a good value, even though they play Crystal Palace away from home, and Crystal Palace have only conceded 3 goals at home so far this season. That's through 4 matches. 2 of those matches were Luton and Nottingham Forest, I think, and they had against Arsenal when Arsenal were down to 10 men for several parts of the match. So yeah, I don't really think you should put that much stock in Crystal Palace's like historical defensive propensity, I guess, because I do think they are much easier to target now that they don't have anything going forward. They do have Edouard, who could score goals. He didn't really create much against Newcastle, but he could have scored as well. So maybe he will help a little bit, but I think Crystal Palace are really struggling now without Eze, Olise, and Zaha gone long ago. So yeah, definitely a sneaky team to target, I think, currently. Then we have Chelsea against Arsenal, and this game was kind of surprisingly 2-2, because in terms of the chances created, it shouldn't have been 2-2 probably, but there were a lot of mistakes in this game, especially from the goalkeepers. Raya looked kind of shaky all game. I still think Raya is one of the best goalkeepers in the league, so I still don't think Ramsdale should play ahead of him, but this was definitely not his best game. He conceded like a weird kind of goal from Mudryk as well. But yeah, Chelsea took the lead through a penalty from Cole Palmer, who actually wrestled the ball away from, or not, didn't wrestle the ball away from, but Raheem Sterling tried to wrestle the ball away from Palmer and take the penalty himself, but Palmer was basically just stood his ground and was backed up by Enzo Fernandez as well. And Palmer took the penalty, scored the penalty. And Sterling, to his credit, did celebrate with Palmer, so he didn't have any bad intentions, I guess. He just wanted to take the penalty and thought he had the chance to score it, but Palmer did instead. Good for him, good for Chelsea, who took the lead. Then Mudryk scored a kind of a freak goal. It looked like he was trying to cross it. I don't think he was even looking at the goal, but the ball just sailed past Raya, which I think it's kind of harsh to judge Raya from that, but at the same time, it's the type of goal that you don't really concede that much, so people will often blame the goalkeeper for those types of goals, especially Raya now with the whole situation with Raya and Ramsdale, which has been heavily discussed as well. It might be taking a toll on Arsenal, because Raya did have some shaky moments, but he did actually recover pretty well the times he lost the ball. Same could not be said for Robert Sanchez in the Chelsea goal, who gave Arsenal a lifeline when he passed it to, I can't remember exactly which player it was, but Declan Rice, who is, as I've said this whole time when I've had this YouTube channel, because I'm a West Ham fan and I watched him the last few seasons be an amazing player and deserve all the credits in the world. He has been sort of undermined while he was a West Ham player, but now people are actually seeing his value now that he's at Arsenal, and he showed his value with the goal as well, because it was a poor mistake from Sanchez, but it was a really well taken goal from Rice, who just shot it straight away, had no second thoughts about it, just shot it straight away, and it went straight into the goal, straight into the side netting. A really good finish from Rice, who gave Arsenal a chance. And Rice in general through the game, once again, as you can expect from Rice, he doesn't really make mistakes. He makes a lot of good progressive passes, a lot of good progressive carries. I just think Declan Rice is a fantastic player, and there's a reason why I have a West Ham shirt with his name on it, because I'm a huge fan, and I'm glad to see everyone else appreciating Rice as well. But it's also funny to see a lot of Arsenal fans who were slating him before are now his biggest fans. And the opposite as well. There are a lot of West Ham fans who were his biggest fans and are now sort of detractors. So yeah, it's kind of funny that thing. But either way, Arsenal managed to get back in the game with that. Because Saka also got his point return towards the end with the assist. Saka, I think, was pretty good in general. Kukurea had a really decent match defending against him, but still Saka was, as always, one of the best players on the pitch. And Arsenal's second best player, in my opinion, behind Rice. But he put in a really nice cross for Trossard, who scored a goal once again for Arsenal. Trossard sort of equaling up the Mudryk thing after, the whole saga with Mudryk, where he wanted to join Arsenal a year ago. But he went to Chelsea instead because Chelsea offered more money in terms of buying him, in terms of the transfer fee. Arsenal couldn't quite meet the transfer demands of Shakhtar Donetsk. And Arsenal went for Trossard instead. So Trossard managed to equalize with the 2-2 goal. Probably, but it was pretty poor from Malo Gusto not to keep up with Trossard, because Gusto has the pace to keep up with Trossard, but he just wasn't paying attention, and Trossard managed to sneak in back post and score a really nice finish as well from Trossard, who is a really good player. But that might also be the end of the road for Gusto in terms of starting, at least if Reece James is back fit, which is always the question. But Reece James was on the bench this game, so I think Reece James is going to start next game. So Malo Gusto, I think if I had him, I would still probably just keep him, because you never know with Reece James. He's probably going to get injured at some point. So I think Gusto is someone you could keep, even though Chelsea have horrible fixtures, but he costs basically like nothing, 4.2. And I think he's always has a decent chance of starting because of Reece James's injury history. So yeah, keep that in mind. But either way, 2-2 in the end. Arsenal get a vital point. They stay undefeated as well, which is always nice to hear for Arsenal fans. They do love to be invincibles. But yeah, another kind of poor result from Arsenal, or kind of poor performance in terms of offensive play. So maybe you should be a bit worried about Arsenal attacking assets. I know a lot of people were looking to get both Saka and Martinelli, potentially someone else, offensively for Arsenal before next game week, and doing that would be from selling Spurs players. But now that Arsenal had a pretty poor offensive game and Spurs had a pretty good offensive game, people are getting cold feet, and I guess rightfully so. But at the same time, Saka once again got his points. He got 5 points from the assist. He can score more. He's on penalties mostly, even though he gives away some penalties. So yeah, I still think Arsenal midfielders are viable, especially considering they're facing Sheffield United and Burnley in the next 3 game weeks. But selling Spurs assets for them, maybe not. I think if I had double Spurs assets, Son and Madison, I'd probably sell one of them to get an Arsenal attacker. But yeah, that's just me. But anyway, that's the Chelsea-Arsenal game, 2-2. Let's move on to Sheffield United against Man United, where we thought that we could potentially have a Man United win finally, because they did play one of the worst teams in the league. But once again, Sheffield United showed that they are not that easy to beat. We know, we all have in mind the what was it 8-0 win that Newcastle had against Sheffield United, but I think that sort of says more about Newcastle than it does about Sheffield United, because we saw Newcastle beat Aston Villa 5-1 earlier in the season as well. I think Newcastle are just really good offensively, and yes, Sheffield United are a weak team. They did have a horrendous game against Newcastle, but apart from that, they are conceding pretty much 2 goals every game, which is really bad. But at the same time, the Newcastle game is the only game where they've been severely damaged in terms of conceding goals, where they've conceded 3+ goals. They did have the match against Fulham last game week where they conceded 3 goals as well, but yeah, they are still a team to target, but they are also a team that puts up a fight, and that's what they did against Man United. They actually had the upper hand for the start of the game as well, which was kind of surprising to see. But Man United sort of got the goal against the run of play. Man United, though, did get into the match later on as well. You can see the XG battle in terms of XG. Sheffield United actually won the match, but at the same time, Man United had a huge chance for Højlund. Rasmus Højlund was this close to getting to the ball right in front of goal, and if he had done that, he would have gotten a 0.9 expected goal type of chance if he got his foot to it, which he was really close to getting. So the numbers do kind of lie in terms of just one game. I say this quite often. XG is not really the best measure for just one single game. It is a sort of nice indication, but at the same time, it doesn't tell the full picture. You sort of need to watch the highlights as well, and that's why I sort of do this FPL eye test thing, where I can actually talk about what I saw compared to just the numbers. I do have the numbers to back stuff up as well, or have context for the game. But it's really important to see the highlights as well, because that Højlund chance was massive and it counted for 0 in terms of expected goals. So that's something to keep notice of. Højlund was the top non-penalty expected goal involvement player for Man United, and I think it should have been higher. Like I said, with that chance, he did have a really good chance to score. He also had several other really good chances to score as well. Kind of unlucky, kind of not that good in terms of how he took his chances, but I think that's also just that comes with the confidence that Man United have at the moment, which is really low, and I still think Man United are a really good team to target. So Man City playing them away next game week, I think that's a really good fixture for Man City. And still, even though it is Man United at Old Trafford, which is historically a really tough game, but yeah, Man United look kind of shaky, but at the same time, they managed to get the win once again. That's sort of been like Man United's MO this season. They have looked really bad, and they have had a lot of bad results, but they also have managed to get a couple 3-pointers here and there, which is keeping them away from the relegation battle at least so far. But yeah, Sheffield United, to their credit, looked better than usual. McBurney scored from a penalty as well, a decent penalty. Onana was after it, but he didn't quite manage to save it. But yeah, McBurney in general was also really good in this game. I think McBurney, Hammer, and Archer are the 3 most likely players to score from Sheffield United, and I do tend to get like a goal per game-ish. So they are kind of a difficult team to target in FPL, maybe, potentially. But at the same time, they are one of the weaker teams in the league, so yeah, I don't know. It's hard to judge these lesser teams like Sheffield United and Luton. They can't score against anyone, but they can also concede. They usually concede 2 or 3 goals every game, so they are decent teams to target, but maybe not for like the massive hauls that you could get, for example, against the likes of Burnley and Bournemouth, for example. So yeah, that's something you should keep note of as well. Bruno Fernandes as well looked pretty good this game. He created a couple chances. He got 1 assist, I think, which was kind of a lucky assist. The opening goal from Man United, Fernandes basically just shot it straight at the chest of Scott McTominay. And once again, Scott McTominay, maybe he's an asset as well. Like, people don't really talk about him as an FPL asset because people are so tired of Man United midfielders, but he keeps playing super offensively and keeps scoring as well. And that's sort of the downside to Fernandes. Anyone that has Fernandes, I probably would sell in this game week, especially considering you could get Arsenal players or Spurs players if you don't have them already. But yeah, Bruno again, he plays sort of more defensively, and that's always been like the thing I've had against Bruno Fernandes. I don't really trust him to play in that attacking midfield role all the time, especially now lately with McTominay scoring a lot of goals. He's actually playing further forward for Man United than Bruno Fernandes. So yeah, I think Bruno Fernandes is the best asset, and I think this game week against Man City is probably the game week where you should sell him, even though he has some decent fixtures after that. I think you just have to let go of Fernandes and Rashford at this point and wait until Man United are in better form, because currently they're not in good form, but somehow get some 3-pointers anyway against these weaker teams. Next up, we have Aston Villa against West Ham, and as a West Ham fan, this game deeply saddened me because West Ham were just not on it at all, especially Mikel Antonio. I've made this point several times when it comes to West Ham. West Ham go as Mikel Antonio goes, and currently he's in pretty poor form, and that means that West Ham are kind of struggling as well. We I should say, potentially have had some really tough matches lately. This is one of them. Aston Villa away. I think that's one of the toughest matches you can have in Premier League at the moment, because Aston Villa have, 10 or 11 straight home wins or something like that. And once again, they proved to be a really good home team. Ollie Watkins, really well taken goal from Watkins. He got the assist for Douglas Luiz as well. Then Aston Villa won a penalty after pretty poor play from Paqueta, who had his worst game of the season so far. He's been potentially West Ham's best player this season, but this game he was really off the pace. And that really hurt West Ham, where everything went wrong for West Ham pretty much, apart from the 1 goal from Bowen, where he sort of got a lucky deflection goal. I think it probably should have been an own goal, to be fair. But Bowen got credited the goal, so everyone with him in fantasy, including those of you who followed my weekly wildcard draft last week and had him in your team, got points from that. But that was pretty much the only points you got from West Ham players this game, because Aston Villa was all over West Ham, pretty much. Well, not all over. You can see the expected goals as well. It wasn't a 4-1 game, I think, but Aston Villa just have a lot of good players that can take their chances really well. We saw that with Bailey, we saw that with Watkins, and we also saw West Ham have some defensive deficiencies as well. Areola is currently the most popular goalkeeper to have because he's so cheap and he's getting a lot of saves, but at the same time, West Ham have only kept 1 clean sheet so far this season, which is not good at all. So yeah, not sure if West Ham defense or West Ham goalkeeper is the best, but at the same time, West Ham are really good fixtures, and that might change things. And I think West Ham are also still a pretty good team. It's just they had a really poor game and played a really tough opposition, or a really tough team in Aston Villa, who are really good. Diaby, as someone has Diaby, kind of disappointed with him. He does have the best non-penalty expected goal involvement, but personally, from watching the game, I can't really see why he got that much non-penalty expected goal moment, joint with Watkins for top in Aston Villa. But yeah, the LB was pretty disappointing. Watkins was once again really good. Watkins, I think, is getting more and more essential, if you want to use that word, by the day. He just keeps finding ways to get points. And he's also scoring really nice goals as well. Like, the finish was super well taken, and also the dribble beforehand as well was really well taken. So Watkins is looking like $1 million currently, and he has been one of the best performing players in the entire game since Unai Emery took over. So I think he's definitely the one you should look at as your potentially even first striker ahead of Haaland. I'm gonna have a bit of a controversial take when it comes to the weekly wildcard draft, so stay tuned for that tomorrow. But yeah. Either way, 4-1 win for Aston Villa. Not really too much to say about this, except that Aston Villa at home are a really good team. They play Luton at home next game week as well, which means that Watkins is going to be a really hot commodity and potentially a really good captain's option as well. I think he might potentially be the best captain's option, personally. I don't have him in my team, and I don't have any ways to get him into my team probably as well, so I'm kind of worried about that for next game week. And I was worried as a West Ham fan watching Watkins playing against West Ham as well, because Watkins is currently really good. Diaby kind of been lackluster lately, but at the same time, you can't really sell him either when he has the fixtures that he has. The next 3 fixtures for Aston Villa are really, really, really good. 2 of them at home as well. So yeah, definitely a team to have players from. Medicash did play right back this time around rather than right wing, and that sort of hampers his appeal as well. I think most of his appeal is from playing right wing. That's where he got his 2 goals from as well. So I think he's not as important asset as people are making him out to be, because he's mostly going to play right back rather than right wing. But when he plays right wing, those games, he is one of the best assets in terms of defenders. So yeah, he's kind of a tough player to gauge, but at the same time, Aston Villa are really good, and he's involved offensively as well when he plays further up the pitch, especially. So he's still a good asset, but I don't think he's like quite as like essential as we maybe thought in the first place, because yeah, most of his points and most of his XG comes from that game where he scored 2 goals, where he played as a right winger, but that's not going to be the case every single game week. But yeah, he's still a decent choice. He's still someone that I definitely would have on a wildcard, but not for too long, because Aston Villa, after the next 3 games, they do get some tougher fixtures after that, so you sort of have to have an exit plan, and I think Estepinian might be the way out of that, because he has some good fixtures after that, and it's probably back fit once Cash's easy fixtures run out. So I think that's a pretty easy swap for most people. Anyway, but yeah, Aston Villa, a lot of good assets. West Ham still have a lot of good assets as well. Bowen in particular scored again away from home, scores every time away from home. He plays Burnley away from home, which is like probably the best match in FPL currently in Game Week 13, and I'm looking to get him in before that game week and captain him potentially in that game week as well. So he's definitely a good option. Kudus might come into play now as well. That's always been like the case with West Ham. Kudus has looked amazing anytime he's played for West Ham. Maybe not so much in this game when he came on, but a lot of people are saying that Antonio should be benched and Kudus should play and Bowen should play up front, which should also help Bowen's appeal as well in terms of FPL potentially. So yeah, West Ham still have some good players defensively as well, but maybe not. Maybe especially doubling up. Like I have thought about having Areola and then adding on top of that having someone like Zuma or something like that, because Ward-Prowse puts in the corners all the time, where Zuma and Aguerd can score them. But I think doubling up on West Ham defense would not be advisable going forward, so I probably wouldn't do that if I have Areola in goal already. So stay clear of West Ham defenders, I guess, if you have Areola. But having 1 defender or 1 goalkeeper could be good for West Ham, but both probably not. But yeah, speaking of the defenders as well, Aguerd was sort of at fault for the first goal that West Ham conceded, because the ball did hit his heel. Sort of took a slight deflection from the Douglas Luiz shot. I think that put off Areola as well. It looked like a goalkeeping mistake from Areola at first, and he probably should have saved it anyway, because he should have stronger like wrists to get the ball away from goal. But at the same time, the slight deflection makes it difficult for Areola to save. And once again, Aguerd sort of gets blamed for a goal. I know West Ham fans are very disappointed with Aguerd this season in general, who has a pretty high standing in terms of the rest of the Premier League fan base, but West Ham fans are kind of unhappy about Aguerd and want to see him sort of dropped. But next game he might actually play left back, because Emerson Palmieri got another yellow card and he's going to be suspended for next game. Cresswell is still out injured, so it might be, unless they play Kerr at left back, it might be Aguerd who goes out to left back, but that's down to like some West Ham minutia that you don't really care about. Probably it's more for me as a West Ham fan. But let's move on to the final game of the game week, and that is Spurs against Fulham. Once again, Spurs scores 2 goals. Once again, they keep a clean sheet, and once again, they get 3 points. They're top of the league. This is pretty much how Spurs have been all season. They've just managed to do their business against the lesser teams, and they've managed to get some good results against the bigger teams as well. Kind of luckily, in my opinion, which is why I don't think they are like the title favorites, but they are currently title contenders for sure because they are top of the league, and Maddison and Son are looking fantastic as always. Scoring both goals this time around as well. Son with the first goal, Maddison with the second goal. Son got a goal and an assist. Maddison only got the goal. Richarlison got the assist for Son on the first goal as well. But yeah, Spurs are just super reliable at the moment. So if you have Son or Maddison, if you have one of them, you should keep them, I think. But if you have both, you could make a case for them to be sold because there are so many good midfielders currently. You can't really count on them scoring. Both of them scoring in every game, but so far so good. If you have both Son and Maddison the whole season, you've gotten a lot of points from those guys because Spurs are a really good team currently, and yeah, definitely a team where you can keep their players. Defensive as well. We have to talk about what happened with Udogie, who got subbed off after 55 minutes. Really bad luck for anyone that owns him, me included. I do have the double up with him and Porro, so I did get some clean sheet points at least from Porro. But Udogie being subbed off after 55 minutes, it's sorta worrying in terms of going forward. Udogie hasn't looked quite as good as he did at the start of the season, the last few games. So maybe he's getting dropped soon. I know Emerson Royale is like, for some reason, managers seem to love him and try to fit him into the team. So maybe Udogie's starting position is under threat slightly, but I still think he's going to be the preferred left back. I just think that they just wanted the extra rest for him. But yeah, bad luck for anyone that has Udogie, but good luck for anyone that has Maddison and Son because they keep producing and are really, really good. And that's pretty much it for the weekly wildcard draft the FPL tests. This time around, Fulham is still the team to target. I should mention that as well before I leave you guys. Don't be fooled by the Sheffield United match they had last week. They are still a really good team to target. They didn't really create much. Second half, as you can see, the top 3 players from non-penalty expected goal at the moment is Wilson, Raul, Jimenez, and Iwobi, who all came on in the second half. Iwobi in particular was part of the reason why they managed to get something going forward towards the end of the match. But yeah, Fulham are still not the best team offensively, not the best team defensively. Still a really good team to target, in my opinion, even though a lot of people seem to think that they still have sort of this unlocked level from last year where they finished sort of mid-table, but I still think they are one of the worst teams in the league and definitely a team to target. And that's pretty much it for the FPL test for game week 9. Looking forward to game week 10. A lot of people are on the wildcard, so the weekly wildcard draft video, which will come up tomorrow, is going to be helpful for you, I think. But with that, I'm going to leave you. Thank you for watching this YouTube channel. Hope you subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.